1928 Tour de France. The 1928 Tour de France was the 22nd edition of the Tour de France, taking place from 17 June to 15 July. It consisted of 22 stages over 5,376 km, 3,340 mi. The Tour was won by Nicolas Frantz, his second win. He held the yellow jersey from beginning to end, despite an incident 3 days before the end of the race. France had a mechanical failure between Metz and Charleville and had to finish 100 km of the stage on an undersized women's bicycle, resulting in a loss of 28 minutes. Regardless, France won the Tour, with his Alcyon team winning the team trophy and having riders finish in second and third places. The 22nd Tour featured the first appearance of an Australian/New Zealand team, indicating the beginning of a more international sporting field. Their experience was turned into a film by Phil Keoghan, The Ride, released in July 2016. Tour director Henry Desgrange allowed teams to replace exhausted or injured cyclists with new riders to give the weaker teams a fairer chance. However, the experiment backfired, having the opposite effect, so the concept was quickly abandoned. Innovations and changes. In the 1927 Tour de France, the team time trial format had been introduced, where teams started 15 minutes apart. This was done to make the flat stages more competitive. Although in 1927 this had not been successful, the formula was repeated in 1928. This time the teams started 10 minutes after each other. The team time trial format had been an advantage to the strong teams, therefore the Tour organization invented a new rule. Intended to help the weak teams, the teams were allowed to replace cyclists in the beginning of stage 12, halfway through the competition. They were not eligible for the general classification. Another new concept was regional teams. The riders were separated in 3 groups. There were 8 trade teams, 9 regional teams of 5 riders, and the tourist routiers, without teams. Between them, the 8 trade teams formed 5 competing units for the race. 3 of them, Alcyon, Armour and Taman, all of which had sponsorship from Dunlop, combined to compete as a single unit of 10 riders. Elvish and Fontaine, with Walber sponsorship, did the same. The formidable Alcyon Armour Taman combination would go on to fill the top 5 places overall. In other years, the mountain stages, especially in the Pyrenees, had decided the race. To reduce the importance of these stages, the Tour organization had changed the route of the first mountain stage that had been the same since 1913. 2 mountains, the Aspen and the Peyre-Sauard, were left out of the stage. The Tour also saw the introduction of the Australian/New Zealand team sponsored by Ravet. It was headed by Hubert Opperman, who had been the Australian cycling champion for a few years. After the Melbourne Herald had a campaign to send Opperman to the Tour de France, a team was made. The plan was to add 6 experienced European cyclists to the team, but this did not happen. Opperman rode some races in Europe and could compete with the European top cyclists, but the rest of his team could not. Because a major part of the race was in the team time trial format, Opperman had no chance to win the Tour. The Kennett brothers wrote a book about the New Zealander on the team, Harry Watson, that was read by cycling enthusiast and the amazing race host Phil Keoghan, who was surprised that he had never heard of the fellow Cantabrian before. Keoghan decided to celebrate the team's achievement, and with a friend, he rode the 1928 stages on period bicycles to the original 26-day schedule. Their experience was turned into a film, The Ride, which premiered in July 2016 in Watson's hometown Christchurch. Teams. Altogether, 162 cyclists started the race. Race overview. In the first team time trial-like stages, the Alcyon team emerged the best. The individual tourist routiers could not compete to the professional teams. The Alcyon team finished first in 5 of the 8 stages. Nicolas Frantz, the winner of the previous Tour, crossed the finish line first in the first stage and was leading the classification, and kept the lead during these stages. After the first 8 stages, Frantz was leading the race, followed by his teammate Maurice de Waal at 99 seconds. Julian Verbeek, the Belgian from the Armour team, followed in third place, 135 seconds behind. In Stage 9, the first mountain stage, Frantz did not crush the competition as he had done on previous year. Instead, Victor Fontaine, who was more than 1.5 hours behind in the general classification, was allowed to escape and win the stage. Frantz still finished second, 7 minutes behind, and extended his lead on his direct competitors, and was now leading by more than 40 minutes. In the 10th stage, the Alcyon teammates Leduc, Frantz, and de Waal finished first, and they now had the first 3 places in the general classification. Next came the Alps. Here, Frantz increased his lead. Behind him, de Waal gained time on Leduc and was now in second place. After the Alps, the 3 Alcyon cyclists still held the first 3 places in the general classification, with Frantz comfortably leading by more than 75 minutes. In the 19th stage, Frantz's bicycle frame broke when he rode over a railroad track. His sponsor, Alcyon, did not like the bad publicity and wanted Frantz to go to an Alcyon dealer and get a replacement bike. The team manager from Alcyon was against this idea because this would cause a major time loss and maybe even the loss of the Tour de France. According to some sources, they found a bicycle shop that only had one bicycle left, an undersized women's bicycle, and they decided to take it. Other sources say that when they were thinking what to do, Frantz spotted a woman with a bicycle and persuaded her to give him her bike. Frantz rode the last 100 km on this undersized women's bicycle and did this with 27 km/h, whereas the winner of the stage had 34 km/h. His lead dropped with 30 minutes, but he was still leading the race. In the 21st stage, Antonin Magny and Francis Bouillet had escaped together, and it was Bouillet who won the sprint. This was a problem for the Tour organization, as Bouillet had already left the race in Stage 9, to start again as a replacement in Stage 12. Hence, he was no longer eligible for the general classification and could not be the winner of his stage. The Tour organization solved the problem by giving Bouillet the best time and proclaiming him the moral winner of the stage, and making Magny the official winner of the stage. Results: in stages 1 to 8 and 15 to 21, the cyclists started in teams. The cyclist who reached the finish fastest was the winner of the stage. In the other stages, all cyclists started together. The time that each cyclist required to finish the stage was recorded. For the general classification, these times were added up. The cyclist with the least accumulated time was the race leader, identified by the yellow jersey. Stage winners: Nicolas Frantz wore the yellow jersey from the start of the race to the end of the race. Since the introduction of the yellow jersey in 1919, this has only happened in 1924, 1928, and 1935. As the winner of the previous year, Frantz also wore the yellow jersey during the first stage. He is the only cyclist to wear the yellow jersey during an entire Tour de France. General classification: the Alcyon team had all the podium positions. Since 1928, it has never happened again that one team had all the podium positions. Other classifications: the organizing newspaper, Alauto, named Malheur Grimpour best climber, an unofficial precursor to the modern King of the Mountains competition. This award was won by Victor Fontaine. There was also a team trophy. The team trophy for teams was won by Alcyon. The Champagne regional team won the team trophy for regional teams. This team trophy was not the same as the team classification that has been run since 1930. Aftermath: the team time trial method had not given the desired result. In the 1929 Tour de France, it was only used if the previous stage had been too slow, and after 1929 it disappeared. The rule with replaced cyclists did not even make it until the next year. Some riders had been grouped in regional teams. This was considered successful. In 1930 the system would change to the national team system, where riders were grouped in national or regional teams.